Let's get insights from Dr. Rommel Banlaoi, President of the Philippine Society for International Studies. He's also the chairman of the Philippine Institute for Peace, Violence, and Terrorism Research. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, good morning, Angelo, and good morning, Angela. It's good to be back.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's start off with this. No, itong conflict na to that just escalated over the weekend. No, do you think this could become a wider regional war? Kasi yung tanong na marami, ito na nga ba ang tinatawag nilang possible mitya ng World War III?
Yeah, in fact, regional consequences and global fallout arising from this conflict. As we can see, strikes have widened into a prolonged war already, a prolonged violent activities in the Gulf states. And it involves not only U.S. and Iran, but also other states in the Arab world. Now, it's causing a lot of fear among the civilian population, not only those residing in the Middle East, but also those overseas Filipino contract workers. As I monitor the situation on the ground, people across the Middle East have been instructed to take precaution and possibly to take cover from possible Iranian retaliation. And I think I'm very worried that the current situation might trigger the risk of a massive humanitarian crisis and even mass displacement of civilian people if the current situation is not addressed peacefully. And we also know the global fallout. No, there is now the risk of nuclear proliferation. I am examining the actions from Iran, and I fear that Iran might accelerate its current nuclear development. And with the support of the Iranian people, the Iranian government right now is more convinced to develop their nuclear weapons in order to retaliate against U.S. and Israel. And we already see a lot of fear going on around the world, that this current situation could spiral into a global war. Yung iba, sinasabi nila, this will be a World War III in the making. But I hope we will not lead to that situation because it will really affect the whole world. But I'm more concerned about its consequences for the Philippines, especially our overseas Filipino contract workers in the Middle East.
Well, Prof, you mentioned kanina yung Iranian people. No? Several reports have come in. Medyo they are torn. No? In other words, hati-hati sila eh. May mga talagang happy na nangyari to because yung mga part of the oppressed era before. Pero how important is the reaction of the Iranian people in terms of possibly de-escalating this? How can they be successful into possibly overthrowing the Iranian government? Yes, go ahead, Prof.
Yeah, unfortunately, right now, there is a serious effort on the part of the United States to really pursue regime change in Iran. But there are also other popular support. There's popular support for the existing regime. There's also a support to oust the existing regime. So Iran is very divided now. And it is a classic case of a nation in distress as divide and rule. It's easier to rule a country that is heavily divided. But based on my analysis of other situations like what happened in Iraq, in Syria, and in Afghanistan, regime change is one thing, but normalizing the situation is another thing.
Right.
Now we see Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq having difficulties in their political normalization process, and we don't want that thing to happen in Iran. And Iran is a special case, Angelo, because Iran has the tacit, a very obvious support of the Chinese government and the Russian government and other countries in the Middle East who feel that the United States is really exercising and flexing its muscle to really change regime that it does not like. So that's creating a movement against the United States. Okay, and that is why Iran is targeting American military bases in the Gulf states in order to deny the United States further military advantage in the area.
Well, Prof, so sa nakikita nyo, it's more of the regime change. Pero the Trump administration also said they want to denuclearize Iran, nakukuha na nila to, and then there's a mention of regime change. But what's in it for the US now should things escalate, and how is this going to affect the position of our country when it comes to diplomatic relations?
Well, it's a double standard. They want to denuclearize Iran, but U.S. is not denuclearizing. You know, U.S. has the huge arsenal of nuclear weapons all over the world. So it's a double standard. You're saying that it's okay for the Americans to hold a gun and not for the rest. You see, that's the crucial issue. If you want to denuclearize, don't single out any country. So there must be a call for global denuclearization. Dismantle all nuclear weapons, and that includes all nuclear weapons being maintained by the United States and by other major powers. Why single out Iran? So that's the double standard that we are seeing now, and that is now the current debate now on why the United States is forcing Iran to denuclearize, considering that it has the huge arsenal of nuclear weapons in the world, and that would also have serious implications for Russia, for China, and other nuclear power states. So for me, if there is a call for denuclearization, let us not single out Iran, or let us not single out North Korea or any other countries, but it must be a global call for denuclearization, because we don't need weapons of mass destruction. You know, according to the United Nations, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction is one of the greatest threats to international peace and security. So if you want to call for denuclearization, then we need to make it a global responsibility and not single out any nation.
We're talking about now yung Russia
Yeah.
and China, no. Madami nang nagsasabi we should take a look at these two countries carefully when this conflict was started, because importante magiging reaction nila. May nagsasabi din that they don't think Russia will involve themselves, given na they're also preoccupied sa Ukraine war. Kulang na daw sila ng bala, kulang na sila ng tao. They couldn't even contend with Ukraine easily as expected dapat. So, sino dapat ang isa pang major player na titignan natin aside from these two? Should we take a look at North Korea?
Yes, yes. But right now, even if we will get the official statement of these countries, they are calling for all parties involved in the conflict to stop their current violent activities, make a ceasefire, pursue a ceasefire, and go back to diplomacy and iron out their differences by talking. So, in that's the call of ASEAN members, that's the call of China and even Russia. See, because they don't want this conflict to trigger another violent activities on a global scale, because that will really have huge economic shockwaves. Right now we can see that all markets have already reacted sharply. And I fear that if the current situation is not de-escalated, then we will see huge implications for the Philippines in terms of the prices of oil, increase the prices of oil, and this will have tremendous inflationary effects. And the situation of the Filipino people will be worse as a result of this conflict, especially yung mga OFWs natin na naapektuhan, na nahinto sila sa trabaho. Pag nahinto sila sa trabaho, then they will not be able to send money to their people, to their loved ones back in the Philippines. So the economic impact is really huge. That is why there is a global call for a ceasefire. There's a global call for U.S. and Israel to stop their violent activities against against Iran, and there's also a global call on Iran to stop its retaliation because it's affecting not only the Gulf region but also the whole world. So now is the time to go back to the diplomacy rather than military activities.
All right, Prof. Last question for us. Iran's supreme leader is presumably and reportedly dead, but how big of an impact does this have sa motives or agenda ng Trump administration and the supposed regime change that he is extending to the Iranian people?
I think President Donald Trump failed to learn lessons from the past. The changing a regime will not make a country better. We have seen that in Iraq. We have seen that in Syria. We have seen that in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, it's really a very funny case because they made a regime change in Iraq, but by overthrowing the Taliban, only to request the Taliban to go back in governing Afghanistan after 25 years of tremendous fighting. So there must be other ways to make the world more peaceful, to make the world more stable, rather than regime change. So what we need now, I always admire the Bandung Declaration. The Bandung Declaration initiated by Indonesia and also followed by other countries in Asia. Bandung Declaration calls for peaceful coexistence. We have differences. We have different political systems. We have different economic development. We have diverse culture. But in the midst of those differences, we can peacefully coexist. And I think that is now the clarion call right now, that we have to peacefully coexist rather than eliminate those whom you feel is different from what you're doing. And for Iran is really different from the United States, but they can coexist peacefully by paying due regard to the sovereignty and even territorial integrity of other states. So what we see now is an example of how the United States is using its current military power in order to impose its will on other states. And for me, that is a threat not only to global peace and security, but also a threat to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states in the world.
All right. Thank you for your time and insights, Dr. Rommel Banlaoi.